So today we're looking at something that's taken me a little while to get to, but I can't help myself because I just love this game so much. Today we're talking about Imperial Assault, which is a game that was released by Fantasy Flight Games, which is now all under AMG and so on. We won't go too much into the history of the politics or the business of it all, but suffice to say that the game is still out there. It's just that it's not being developed any further. But again, there's enough of a community outside that we've been able to continue on the long-held tradition of the game and update as many of the rules and come through with FAQs and all of those sorts of things, taking on the all of that. So this is Imperial Assault, and we shall get started on running through some of this. So the first thing that captures you is the box art. Now, for some of you people out there who are used to the game and who know the game and are familiar with it all, bear with me. We've got a little bit of something extra we're going to introduce a little bit later. But for those who are not familiar, this is part role-playing game, part board game. And there are two parts to the game, but today all we're looking at is the campaign element. There's one element which is small unit tactics skirmish, and the other one is a campaign where you take a handful of characters and you move them and progress them through the story arcs, where they then gain experience, equipment, new skills, and you can blossom in whatever way you need to. So what we'll do is we'll do a quick run through and get a little bit more in deep. So being classic old school Fantasy Flight, the base set comes with quite a few items. You're looking at various models, you've got lots of booklets, exotic dice, cards, tokens, and everything else that goes with it. So it's the good old days. So this is easily a great successor to the old TSR feels, in my mind, the way that it's all done. And basically Fantasy Flight Games were all built up and around a game called Twilight Imperium, which I've done a little bit in the past on that, so revisit some of that. But they also had in their stable the Star Wars licensing, which gave them the miniatures games, and from there we have Armada, X-Wing, Rebellion, and we went to a Star Wars role-playing game, and of course Imperial Assault. There were lots of issues around Imperial Assault because it's a little bit of a board game and a little bit of a role-playing game, a little bit of a miniature skirmish game. So because it breaches, it doesn't sort of sit in one box. It had a few licensing issues to begin with, but they were all resolved regardless of what the rumor mills was suggesting. They were all resolved. So with this game, and the campaign version specifically, you have a set of missions, and if you've enjoyed games in the past like Knights of the Old Republic, Jedi Academy, if you enjoyed the movie Rogue One, if you liked the TV show Rebels, if you've enjoyed a lot of the side elements to the Clone Wars, they are all what were used as inspiration, and sometimes you sort of feel moved through the campaign elements of this game, where, like I said, you get a couple of characters and you then grow them, you gain allies, you go up against a particular villain or series of villains with recurring themes, until you get to the final aftermath. It's a full-blown story. So where this is a little bit different to a game such as, say, Risk or chess, where it's very adversarial and it's player against player and everyone's chewing against each other, everyone's fighting for the same food, this is a game that lends itself to the more role-playing aspect of the genre. So yes, you have one person who takes on, quote-unquote, the Imperial player, and then you have the players who take on, quote-unquote, the heroes. It is still their story, it is still the story of the actual missions and everything else that goes with it. So you're still building all of that. You can add new missions, side missions by buying expansion packs. You don't have to, but if you choose to buy expansion packs, then you can gain more missions, more cards, more options. The Imperial player can make it as difficult for the players as they want to, and they can make it as easy for the players. So for the more experienced GMs, it might be worthwhile picking up and running with a game like this, where you still get to do the miniature game, you still get to be the board game moving pieces around, but what's different is that you are running a story. So if you like that narrative feel, you've got this. By comparison to something, say, like a role-playing game, it is a little bit more railroady, obviously, because there are set missions. But no two games will ever be the same, even with the same players and the same characters. You've got so many facilities for switching things up that what they were expecting, boom, something new. And that's great. That means that you can keep revisiting this game over and over again. I don't know if any of you have played Knights of the Old Republic. One of my favorite games on the old computer and modern computer of all time. I could keep going back to that game again and again and again, because there are always ways of just saying, okay, now I'm going to explore this story arc. And that's what you do. That's how you can do it. So with the campaign, we have a specific campaign book, learn to play book, we have a rules reference, and a skirmish guide. We're not dealing with skirmish today, so we'll put that aside. Learn to play is good for, it breaks it all down, makes it nice and easy and simple. And of course, after a decade and a bit, there's going to be lots of different FAQs and cards need to be updated and so on, never going to happen. It's okay, it's not a daunting task. You can still run and have a great time with everything as it's laid out. The more experienced you are, obviously, the more you're able to work the angles, literally. But we'll discuss some of that. So the campaign guide, campaign reference sheet, photocopy that. And all of this is pure missions for the campaign. And if we can have a quick look at how the story arcs work. We have our first one, which is actually listed. Then, as the missions move down, you see how it's all blank, you fill those in as you go. If you win here, you move to the next mission, you have a side mission, which comes from a set of cards or a set of angles that you wish to run with. The Imperial player has forced missions. You've got heroic missions as well that are aligned with each individual character. So you have a whole slew of things that you can run with that fall by the wayside. And this is a great way of keeping track of it. Experience points for the Empire, because yes, they gain experience as well and they get to do a few more funky things with their side. Call on extra resources, influence, same sort of deal. And the rebels, and there we go, their experience points. And how many credits, because you still got to get the almighty credit in order to be able to buy equipment as well. At the end of every round, at the end of every mission, you get to buy equipment, you get to sell equipment, and so on. So you, like I said, it's exactly, not exact, but it's very similar to a lot of the other games where of the old, where you would just have fun. Get out there, play the mission, play the side mission, play the personal mission, have a forced mission there's so much to go on. It's great. This is actually one, like I said, this is the reason why it's one of my favorite games of all time. And you can tell I'm just a little bit excited because it's something that I do love to speak about. And it ticks so many boxes across the board that if you like an element of gameplay, you can find it here. You like role-playing game, done. You like strategy game, done. You like miniature game, tactical game, done. You like Star Wars, this is real Star Wars. And as you progress with the ally and villain packs, then you get more card options, you get more side missions, And of course it builds up the skirmish game, which is the other aspect to all of this. So the models come unpainted, but it's well worth painting just because it's really fun. And there are plenty of guides out there on how to get the character art and how to get the characters laid out how you wish. And what we've got today is a set of heroes. And we're doing the first mission. So the way how every single hero has their own pack of cards which they get to choose from when they gain experience. You can have, each character is able to have one set of armor, 2 weapons of any sort, but 2 weapons, and 3 other pieces of equipment. So as you progress, your equipment's going to change, and so will sometimes your weapons. We have our Alderaan survivor. We know how cool they can get. Smuggler. Gino Dan, the sly smuggler. Diala Pasil. Haunted Exile. She doesn't start with her lightsaber. That comes with one of the missions later. And Garkin, a fierce warrior who doesn't love a good Wookiee. Each of the characters come with special abilities. Sometimes you just have to pay, sometimes they're an action, because you've got the ability to do some actions, obviously when it's your activation. Like I said, there's still a lot of elements to how this works, much like a normal miniatures game. But when you've got some abilities that you can just interrupt the opponent moving, you might be able to do it once, twice, or for as long as you pay the cost. And there are 2 parts to paying costs. One is health, and the other one is with strain. That's the little sort of the blue tokens that we'll be definitely seeing. Garkin starts with a vibro axe. So we can see that it has coloured dice. It tells us that it's a melee weapon and what dice to use. And then you have special effects. So those little lightning bolts means that when you roll a die and that comes up, you can spend those surges for those effects. Not every weapon has the same effects, but we've got 2 ranged and 2 melee. Blue-green being a standard blaster, but then it comes down to the surges and what the character can do. Finn being pretty cool, able to blast about, and he's a loner. Alright, so having a look at one of the models. We'll get to some of those, trying to get the nicer images on those a bit later. When you set up for a mission, comes with all the tiles. Everything in a box comes with everything required for that box. So if you get the starter set, you get everything you need to run the initial missions with all the characters and all the special characters and everything else. If you don't have models, then you get little tokens that you can use to represent those models. Or you can just go out and get those models, which is what they really want. But for all the campaign elements, every box set you can run with what is inside that set, which is quite nice. If you just want a self-contained system, you don't want to play it as a skirmish, you just want to run with a nice sort of evening type game where you just roll it out and have a mission and whatever, it's great. Like I said, if you wanted to expand it and if you wanted to make it as complex as you wanted to, you certainly can. And you can upgrade ally packs and villain packs so that way you get to include much more diverse missions, but you start with a lot of missions. You've got a lot to choose from. So this is an example of one of the deployment cards. As you can see, we have the amount of health for each unit, how many models are in the unit cost, individual model cost, and the grey to the red is the difference between elite and regular. So the elites will often have more advanced variations of the regular abilities, and they cost more. Defense is the color of the die that's used in defense, and how many. Just like in the attack, you have what dice are used for the attack and how many. Sometimes it can be 2 or even 3 dice. And then you've got the surges along the way. This is an example of a personal mission card. For this one, it's Fens. So that gets put into the pack for when you create your list of missions. You insert cards, one for each of the heroes, as well as leaving plenty of options open for side missions. So then you're drawing from a hand of cards rather than having a selected mission structure, which means that you play again and you'll have different cards in your hand, because apart from the hero missions, which will always be present, you have a random set of additional options for the side mission quests. And when you win or when you succeed in a mission, you get a reward. If they're personal missions, you get a personal reward, so that hero becomes buffed in some other way. And if it's a group award, they might win some, they might be awarded some additional equipment or some specialized tech, more credits, all sorts of things. You might get special experience points options or once-off ability uses that you can use and so on. So as you do the side missions, they're not integral to the story, but they help the characters down the way if it gives them options that they can then use during the mission. To assist the Imperial player, quote unquote, they have options for having decks of cards that they can draw upon during their campaign experience. These come in the form of agenda cards, which allow special missions to be placed, forced missions that create benefits for the Imperial player, as well as other options that you can buy in terms of resourcing or just sort of some special effects. These agenda cards require influence to be spent. There are also class cards that are available, and so these are different cards that have more specific effects, and you start off with generally 1, then you buy them with experience, much like the way that the players buy their cards with experience points, which then add additional effects down the way. So with a show of force, exhaust this card. When an Imperial figure declares an attack, that figure becomes focused. Focused is an effect that allows you to add more dice. So once you've done it, you exhaust it, and then at the end it comes up. It gets replenished, which means that anytime during the Imperial player activation, they can exhaust this card to add an additional die to the attack. and sometimes they have much more sinister effects. But again, as you grow your collection, you'll have more options for different classes, and you'll have more abilities that be opened up. So the effects that the Imperial have will also be different every time you play. And this is why it's important for the Imperial player to understand that you're still there not so much to automatically try and win, because it's very easy. This is again, it's much more like a role-playing game. You're not against the Games Master, Dungeon Master, whatever. This is a game where it's collaborative. You're building the story, you're moving forward. If you get overly protective of your winning position, there is a chance that you can just be over the top, especially with the options available. So being a little bit measured is kind of a requirement, but as the players do get more experienced, you can even start them with a handful of experience points if you wanted to give them just a little bit of an edge. If depending on how experienced everybody is, then yeah, absolutely. You've got ways of making this play balanced, and that's what it's all about. It's about maintaining the balance. So we like balanced play, and we like it when it's got that Star Warsy feel. So back over at the player's cards, you've got two sides to it. This is their unwounded side, and that is the wounded side. The game pretty much automatically loses if everybody's wounded. Like, that's when play stops straight away, it's done. So when you've got a bit of health on you, that's good, but not everybody has the same health. And your special abilities and your other abilities all change once you become wounded. Heroes have 3 special options for campaign play. These are important, where you've got strength or might, you've got insight, and you've got mechanical checks. And those are the dice required to roll for success. And every character is a little bit different in what they can do. Again, we've got the same sort of deal. What color die, speed for how many squares they move, endurance, and the health. So we'll go through some of those. It's easy to explain by doing. We'll go through that in a few moments. But not all characters are the same. Diala has a white defense, as does Jin. But Finn and Garkin both have a black defense. In terms of dice, since we're talking about it, there are 2 defensive dice. One is black, which blocks damage. That blocks a surge. And the white, which that's an automatic dodge. That means no effect. And they block more surges than they do blocking damage. Over on the attacking side, you've got 3 different colours. 4 different colours, sorry, I missed the blue ones. And so when a blaster is a blue and a green, the number represents the range. So you have to check to see whether the shot is in range before you resolve any effects. The blue one generally has a few numbers on there for range, and the green one has a mixture of effects. The red attacking dice is almost all damage, and the yellow is almost a bit more of a combination, but a bit more surge heavy. So when you get a surge result, something like that means that you've got a range of 2 squares away, inflicting 2 damage with 2 surges. So looking at the character card, surges can be turned into extra range, or they can be turned into extra damage, or they can be turned into other extra effects that will affect the target if damage is inflicted. if it's in range. Oft, this is strong melee, just because when it's melee you don't have to worry about the range. And the red is a good strong one. Someone like Vader would have a couple of reds doing lots of damage. Love that sound. So basically, if the Stormtrooper is 4 squares away and is attacking Fenn's Cygnus, who defends with a black, that is the Stormtrooper attack. For 6 range, 2 wounds or 2 hits and 1 surge. Fenn has 1 black die and blocks the 2 hits. The Stormtrooper has the option for +1 damage for a surge result, so he uses the surge to add a damage, inflicting 1 wound on Fenn. Again, what would a Fantasy Flight product be without some cardboard pieces to put together? And this is a counting tool to measure the round, because sometimes there's a time limit, starting obviously at round 1, and the Imperial player gets to track how much threat. So every round they have a number that they can increase the threat by, and the threat level starts at 2. So to begin with, the first thing that'll happen is that they'll get a 2 threat every round. Sometimes there'll be an effect that might say increase threat by threat level, in which case then they would get more, they'd get bonus threat. And they use this to then reinforce the soldiers or add new units onto a board that might be available in their deployment zones. Sometimes you have open groups that are available, you can just have them sitting on the side, and that's why the gender deck can be quite good, because you can force a play which will then open up a new character or a new type of soldier or trooper, get some dark troopers in, or get some jetpack troopers, so on. So these are the things that you can do if you choose to go down that pathway. Again, it's one of those things where you can just keep expanding and adding and changing, that the game itself is different every time with just such a little tweak. So what good Star Wars game would be complete without chests to explore? And so once you've opened up a chest, each one of these represents a piece of equipment or credits or something that you can then use. Generally they're one-shots or something that you have to give up at the end of the adventure. You don't get to carry them with you unless it says you've got it until you expend it. So this is where you get your adrenal stims, your flash grenades, your stun grenades, and so on. So if we just randomly pick one, valuable goods, discard this card at the end of the mission to receive 100 credits. So with the credits, this is what you use to then buy equipment on a more permanent nature. So once you've explored a chest that takes up an action, you just put that aside and it's done. Something else, a stimulant, which when you suffer a strain, place that strain on this card, then you discard this card when it's got 4 strain, and then that's it. So yeah, so basically it's a nice little adrenal stim of some description. We love that. Who doesn't love just dosing yourself up with adrenal stims, combat stimulants, and then getting into combat? Very Kota If you don't know Knights of the Old Republic, oh, it's so worth getting into. It's a game from 2002, but it is just so worth it. As you collect new allies and villains, you get these little cards, you get these, which come with the pack, so it's worth keeping them. It does have a breakdown of what's involved, what you get inside the expansion pack, like the little, what models you get, what cards are, and so on. You also get a skirmish mission, and you get a mission that you can apply to your campaign game with all of the bits and pieces to it. So that is pretty cool. Sometimes they'll have a special announcement. This map requires the Bespin Gambit expansion. But apart from that, so that's the only way you can get these. So during the campaign, the Imperial player will force this mission, which will then put the ISB agents into the deployment groups that they become available with. So that's when it's really handy to pick carefully which missions you wish to force, because you might want something that you can use later or something that you can draw upon. Just gives you some options. Basically, this next to look at are some more tokens. You also have tokens for various effects that come on board. When someone is focused, they get an extra attack. If they're weakened, they have to do certain things, bleeding, and so on. So you've got stunned, etc. So when those occur, you place that token either next to the model on the board or on the card to say that they're affected by a token. This is to do with health. As you take damage, you add tokens. Once you get past your health, you become wounded, or for the case of the Imperial models, they get removed from play. So a Stormtrooper with 3 health takes 3 of those and is removed from play. That's that one model. Then there are obviously whole units. Then if the Imperial player wishes to redeploy, they can spend the influence later to reinforce the squad. Strain tokens are to do special effects, or to have effects outside of combat, or to add extra things. Sometimes the characters will say, use 1 strain to force a reroll of a die. Spend the strain, they get to reroll a die. They get to accumulate strain. There's only so many points they can accumulate before the strain becomes wounds. Again, some of that is easier to explain while we're doing, so that's what we'll do. But these are the two most commonly used tokens, and the wounds come in lots of with a 3 token as well as a 5 token, because sometimes you just run out of those. The first mission is Aftermath, but what would a Star Wars movie be without a scroll? And like I said, this is pure class and pure Star Wars. So in effect, the crux of the mission is that there's a signal that's calling for the rebels to come to Yavin, and this is what they need to destroy. The first mission is just after the death or the destruction of the Death Star. So the first big blow has been struck, and now they just have to do a bit of cleanup and they're out. The first mission is not large. It doesn't have a lot in it. That's why it's a good first mission. And we'll set it up and we'll get started. So this is how the map looks. We've got our community chest cards right there. We have a door, and there are rules for the effects of doors depending on the mission. And we have the terminals that need to be destroyed. And that blue is where the rebels enter the board from. Each one of the heroes has an activation token. Missing one, but I'll get that. And then as they've activated, it flips over to say that they've already been activated. In a campaign, the heroes always go first, and then you alternate between the Rebel to Imperial players across the round. Once everyone's moved, done their bit, then it's the end of the round. Perform the end of round procedures and get ready for the next one. So with this is where we do everything we've normally done, almost. I'll just show you what the Imperial side have set up, and then we'll continue. Based on the initial startup, this is what is here. Now, normally, a lot of this is hidden from the players. Even sometimes the map doesn't get to be rebuilt get to be fully built until the players move to the next section. But what we're doing today is something slightly different. Here we've got our initial deployment, which have the stormtroopers, probe droid, and an Imperial officer. And in reserve, we have those. Again, as I said, normally they would not. Now, what we are missing is an agenda deck, and that's because we're doing something kind of different today. But we do get the class decks. So the first class deck we've picked is this one. Well, this is the class deck we're running with. So this is the Show of Force, which starts. The Military Might deck. Exhaust this card when an Imperial figure declares an attack, that figure becomes focused. During the whole campaign, as experience points are gained by the Empire, they can pick cards from here to spend the XP to collect those cards. Exactly the way that the heroes do with their own class decks. And again, redoing with a different deck provides different outcomes. So this is the Military Might deck. Yes, we love Military Might. Might makes right. So this is where we deviate from our standard game just a little bit. Fan based, there is a utility for solo play or a play where you don't have an Imperial player as such, that you could have a bunch of guys all working together as the rebels, and then the Imperial is run by sort of like an AI, sort of. There are a list of rules and algorithms that are used in order to allow everything to act as if it's an Imperial player. A little bit of, obviously, you got to be, honest, but apart from that, all good. So this is everything that you get within this little thing, and you can download all of these. You get global events, which you can then add some Rebel aid cards to, Imperial cards to. You have the takes on the missions, on how they run. So there'll be a certain point, especially in Aftermath, where it says, once something happens, perform this function. So this takes the place of the decisions that are made with the game. During the mission, quite often the Imperial player will be given options of running A, B or C with their results, depending on situations and so on. This takes it all out of their hand. So it just sort of allows it to be a bit of a way for that unbiased decisions, because it's all very mechanical and almost like best case. Then you have, these are for all of the character card and the special cards. So how I said, the ally packs and villain packs come with missions. There are certain missions that aren't listed, so it only goes up to a certain point in terms of timeline. just because development. However, it's not difficult to expand it from there if you know what you're doing. Everything in here is covered from the core set, Twin Shadows, Return to Hoth, and the Bespin Gambit, which is about halfway through the overall system. After Bespin Gambit, you've got Jabba's Realm, Heart of the Empire, and Tyrants of Lothal. So they're not included, but it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility to make up ways of getting them included, because once you know what you're doing. All of the Imperial figures, or figures that they're going to use in those sets, come with basically a list of instructions and the priorities and what they do and what they choose. And there's a set of rules as to how it all works. So it takes a lot of the decision making out of your hands, because it's either for solo play, which is what we're doing today, which is a great way of gaining some experience with the game itself. And if you wanted to do a bit of a co-op, you wanted to get 4 or 5 of you, 4 guys together and play, you're playing against, in essence, the computer, which is the system that's used for putting all this together. It does say don't use an agenda deck, which is fair enough, because that's kind of difficult, but it's got all these other cards to represent that in the case. But it doesn't say anything about the class deck, so I'm assuming the class decks are still in use. So these are drawn on the side. So with some of the missions you have reserve deployments, and there are rules on how the reserve deployments work. With the very first mission, Aftermath, there are no reserve deployments. Reserve deployments are the pieces that you've chosen to put aside to bring in as the Imperial player as part of your reinforcements. So that's when you can call in different types of troops, Nexu, and so on. So yeah, so playing it with people is obviously more expansive, but this is a great way of getting an understanding of the game. Then that way we can sort of show it and highlight it a little bit. Now what I've also got are these that allow me to do this. And then, because it comes in 3s, you just put it in there. So then as they take wounds, at the back of these I have 1, 2, 3. See that? Clever, huh? It's always good to, I do that with all my miniature games anyway, but once I found these tokens, all of this is available online in various spots, so you just have to find them, print them, take them down to your local print shop, get them done up professionally. I just sort of had access to some laminators and some other print runs. All of these I printed just at home. Yeah, that's how dedicated I am. Yeah, anyway, but that's good. And then I folded it. Anyway, you'll figure it all out, how you want to do it and how you run it. But it's my first time using the Redjack, but we'll see how it goes. So this is, once we've got our pieces on the board, you see how cramped this is just a tight mission, this one. This first one is like this. It's just like this one. A few of them are a little bit larger with a few more corridors, but for the most part, this is just to get the action started. And as I said, it's a great first mission, and you'll learn a lot about how to move, and then by the time you've done this one a couple of times, you'll understand economy of movement. So the rebels have to start on the blue token, which is underneath Diala, and then they'd be adjacent to that from there. The Imperials start where they start, and they got no choice. You're just there, like it or not. And yeah, okay. Right. So, get this show on the road. Before we begin again, we want to look at the conditions So these are the types of conditions that can be applied to characters. They come in two forms: beneficial, which are positive, and harmful, which are negatives. So with the most common positive one, obviously the focused, which adds a green die to the attack roll. And once you've performed that attack, the condition is removed. So if for whatever reason a model becomes focused, the very next action or attack that's required, they get the green, and then they lose that condition. Hidden is one that comes a little bit later, but depending on your hero, sometimes they have this condition available where they can become hidden. It's almost like an invisible or a blend or something like that, camouflage. And the moment that they perform an action, they're no longer hidden. If you're weakened, stunned, or bleeding, then you suffer those effects until the condition is met to remove it. So for weakened, it only happens for that round. So if you get hit with a weakened condition, when you attack, you're at -1 surge. When you are being attacked, you have -1 evade. If you are stunned, you must sacrifice one of your actions in order to remove this condition. Otherwise, you cannot attack, you cannot leave, you cannot move, and you cannot do anything. Bleeding, you keep taking damage until you remove this condition. So it takes an action. The little arrow means one action. So all characters have two actions, generally one movement, one attack, generally, but sometimes they'll have something that says that they have an action that they can perform as part of their character, and that can replace their attacking action. So they can still move twice if they need to and whatever, but basically you can only, these sorts of characters off the cards, even if they're allies, can only perform one attack or one attacking action. Heroes can do 2 attacks with their actions, and they've also got access to a couple of other special actions because they're heroes. So they've got a few additional rules that they're able to do that normal characters or characters off these cards can't access. And when an effect happens that causes one of these cards to take strain, it just goes straight onto a wound as opposed to taking strain. Sometimes an attacking effect can cause strain, in which case from a hero point of view they just take the strain. If it's applied to one of these sorts of characters, then that just resolves as straight up damage. We're looking at you, Trandoshan hunters. From the Redjack, these are the AI or the algorithms used for each of the cards we're using today for our Empire. We only have a few on offer today. Each mission, obviously, you've got your different access, and you've got your ally packs, villain packs, and so on, depending on what's being done. And I've just got them aside, so that way it gives you the list of what's their preference, what's the order of actions, and what's they ought to be involved with. Before play begins, get all the cards, get all the tokens, get all of the models up and running, and get everything all down, and then set the round count to 1 and the initial threat to 0. At the end of the first round, the threat will increase, and then the Imperial player will be able to start to purchase or replenish models and put them back on the board. So the heroes activate first, and the first thing that's going to happen is Garkin is going to spend 1 strain to move 1 square, and then perform an attack on that stormtrooper. His weapon is the vibro axe, which has a yellow and a red, and the Stormtrooper's defense is a black. And we get to the fun part of rolling dice. Rolling them all together, the black is the defense die, the yellow and the red are the weapon in this instance. So this means we have 2 hits and 2 surges. The blocking die is for 2 blocks, which would take those away, leaving just the 2 surges. The Vibro Axe has some surge capabilities. One of those is Pierce 1, which means that it breaks through one of those blocks, causing 1 damage onto the trooper. And the other surge, we can do a cleave if we wanted to, which would mean that an adjacent trooper takes 1 damage automatically, or Garkin can use that surge to cancel out the strain that he just spent in causing that and doing that movement. But either way, the current Stormtrooper takes 1 damage, and in this instance we'll remove the strain from Garkin because of the extra surge. So over here, that was trooper number 2. So what I do is I just put that there. Each trooper has 3 health, and Garkin can continue his activation. For his second activation, he's going to smack that trooper 1 more time. And what we do is 3 damage. Now this is a melee weapon that has, so it's only available to be used in adjacent targets, so the range means nothing at this instance. He inflicts 3 damage. That is an evade, which removes surges. There are no surges to be applied, so Garkin does 3 damage, which is more than enough to remove the Stormtrooper. Garkin has done that. For his final step in activation, he's going to spend a surge in order to move 1 square. You can do that twice in a round in an activation. You can spend 2 surges for 2 movement squares, and since he spent 1 earlier but recovered it, he's now spending his second one and moving, which he'll go here. And now it's the Imperial activation. We'll flip over his active token to red and the Imperials. Here's 1 surge. He can have a maximum of 4 surges. The maximum number of surges you can have at any one time is your endurance. You go over that, it becomes hits. So he can spend 4 surges for his endurance, and then if he spends any more surges after that, they become wounds on his character. One of his actions, should he choose to, is a rest action, which recovers 4 surge with his endurance, and if he doesn't have enough surge, then the balance can be healing his health. So if he's got 2 surges and he's taken 2 wounds, he can rest for 4, removing the 2 surges, and then with the balance of the 2, remove the wounds. Only the heroes get to do that as an action. That's not an action that's available to any other of the carded characters, even if they're allies. Under the Redjack system, the models that are the closest to the heroes activates first. In this case, it's a Stormtrooper. There are 2 models left in the squad. One is adjacent and the other is within 4 spaces. So what will happen is that the first one will fire and then move back 3 spaces. The other one will fire and move forward to engage with Garkin. So this is one of those instances where an Imperial player doing their own thing would move one character so that they're adjacent in order to gain a benefit for their squad training. However, the algorithm that's used suggests that that is not the case for the Redjack, and generally there's a reason for that. I did also forget to mention that our first card flipped over for the events this round, or for this is the global effect of tech support, which is apply +1 speed to each Imperial droid. We have a probe droid on the board anyway, so that's good. When this card enters play, all Imperial figures adjacent to a droid, discard conditions become focused and recover 1. So those haven't been applied to anybody. Stormtrooper number 2, Stormtrooper number 3 fires onto Garkin. Then we'll withdraw 3 squares. One block and 2 surges. So the extra 1 surge provides a damage, which will cause 1 point of damage onto Garkin. The other surge just disappears because they can't make use of it. Sometimes the characters will have a priority of a target, and often it's just the nearest unwounded hero, but sometimes there's a specific target that's required and that's the target that they will go for before anyone else. But for the most part, the viable target is the nearest unwounded hero, which of course they're all unwounded at this stage, and the nearest hero is Garkin. So the next Stormtrooper Garkin blocks 2 damage, and in that instance we'll basically negate that, leaving 1 damage. So the next one to activate will be Fen. 1, 2, 3, 4. Diagonal squares are a single move, and he's going to fire on the Imperial officer and spend 1 strain at the same time in order to do a blast effect, which will inflict 1 damage on the Stormtrooper. Now every game that we play has a head mess, and the head mess for Imperial Assault comes with determining line of sight and firing arcs. So you measure from 1 corner of your square, and if you occupy more than 1 square, you can choose any corner that you occupy. Then you have to draw 2 lines to the 2 different corners of an opponent's square, as long as they don't cross. For the most part, it's straightforward. There are instances where obviously you've got very tricky angle shots, and if you're behind a character, you lose line of sight. So Fen could not attack someone directly behind particular models, or a model may not be able to go through hard corners such as that, but can happily go through the diagonals. So that's where from here you can draw a line of sight quite well, even just skimming the edges of some of these corners. In this instance, we're not, like I said, for 80%, maybe even 90% of the time, it's not an issue, but it is the head mess issue of the game. So anyway, so Finn has spent his surge. He's about to fire at the Imperial officer, who has a white die for defense, and Finn attacks with a blue and a green. And he's spending his surge to do a blast, so that if he successfully wounds this guy, the soldier next to him takes 1 damage. The danger with the white die is, of course, that there is an instant, if I can quickly find it, an instant dodge. Sometimes called the X. Yeah, but here we go. So Finn inflicts 4 damage, and there's 1 blocked, which is going to be enough to eliminate the Imperial officer and inflict 1 damage automatically to trooper number 3. The Imperial officer has a special ability. When it's adjacent to an enemy, or adjacent to one of the other troops, it can cower, allowing it to re-roll the die. And that's what we're doing. Boom! So, totally dodges the attack. Through his cowering ability, dodged the attack. So the Imperial officer is the next to engage. And there's a lengthy set of rules as to when and how they work. So basically, if within 2 spaces of a friendly figure that is not within the maximum attack range, move to engage. So the probe droid is within 2 spaces, and they can move to engage, which moves the probe droid forward. That takes up 1 action, and then the Imperial officer can use the other one to attack. So that's what the Imperial officer's done. Action number 1. Action number 2 is firing at Fen. Attacks with a yellow and a blue. Fen defends with a black. Fen blocks 2 and takes 1 damage. It's worth noting that Fen has the Lone Wolf trait, which means at the end of his activation, which I should have done, if he's got no other friendly models adjacent, he gets to remove a strain. So I'll remove that strain now. To signify we've activated the cards, we just do that. And then we activate the 3rd one, which is the probe droid. Again, the probe droid has a lengthy set of rules. And these apply, it'll tell you whether it's the elite version of the probe droid or the regular version, reactions, as well as the defensive adjustments and what tactics to apply for the particular models. If they're within range, do this. If they're in so many spaces, do that. If they need to, etc., and so on. So it gives you all the rules required for how to best play it. So let's activate our probe droid. So the probe droid is adjacent to both Garkin and Fen, and as Garkin is the most damaged, becomes the target of the attack. as I said, there's the structure on how everything is laid out is quite clear. There are a handful of discrepancies, but as they say, just use your best judgment to actually get through it if there seems to be a conflict in what the cards say and what should happen somewhere. So that's yeah. All right, so the attack on Garkin. The probe droid is 2 yellows and a blue, and Garkin is the black. Giving us 1 block, but more importantly, 3 surges and 3 hits. So 2 go through and 3 surges. This is where multiple surges come into play. We have 3 surges, so we can make use of all 3 of those, which is +1 to wound, recovery of 1, unfortunately not damaged, so doesn't recover, but then pierce 1 as well. You can only use the surges listed, and you can't double up unless it's listed twice. There will be some cards that will have multiple surges for different damages or conditions, and you can apply them if you have the surges, but you can't apply the +1 damage twice or 3 times. You can only spend 1 surge for a +1 damage, +1 surge for the pierce, and that 3rd surge just wafts into the ether. So the Garkin takes full 3 damage because his block is blocked by the pierce, and an additional 1, so he takes a total of 4 damage by the probe droid. Now the probe droid moves out of range. So Garkin's taken 6 damage out of 14. And because he suffered 3 or more damage, he now becomes focused. So the next figure to activate will be Jin, who's going to spend 2 strain to move diagonally here, and she's 3 spaces away from that figure that she'll attack with her blaster. She does use 2 greens, so there's a chance that it may not actually get into range. But the Stormtrooper defends with the black. Two greens versus the black. Well, she makes the range. 3. 2 blocks. 1 and a surge. Surge for a +1 extra boom. All good. Her special ability is that if the target she shoots at takes at least 1 damage, she gets to make a free movement, which she will do. As it turns out, I actually forgot to activate this guy when I was doing all of the other Stormtroopers. Whether we need to look at what has to happen. Alright, so basically his response, according to his algorithm, was to fire onto Garkin and move closer. Since that's really not going to do any issues with whatever we've came after that, because we've had 2 other activations, we can just go ahead and do that and afflict poor Garkin with a few more pieces of damage. So that would be 1 block with 2 wounds and 2 surges. 1 goes to +1, so he takes another 2 damage. And the character would have moved closer because that's the instructions, which would have put it there, which had no effect on anything else moving around, and it's all good. So Jin has moved with her strain, fired, which would still be legal, caused the damage, moved, and now she's going to fire a second time, which is 2 greens and the black. So here's 2 blocks, 2, and that's 2 wounds. So that's enough to remove the Stormtrooper anyway. But yeah, so the only real thing we made different was just that we needed to do that. Well, I forgot to do the full activation of the suit of the Stormtrooper squad. But ultimately it didn't make any real difference. It just puts Garkin at 8 rather than 6. Jin inflicted the damage, so she gets to do another slide, which 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, which will move Jin there, well and truly within sight of all of these 3, making use of her quick draw on one of those 2 hopefully, or anyway we'll figure that out next. So the next to activate after Jin is Diala Pasul. So Diala is moving her 4 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, which puts her here. Moving through friendlies is just a single movement. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Her weapon, which is a plasteel staff, she doesn't have the lightsaber yet. Plasteel staff has reach, which means that it's not just adjacent, it's 1 out, so she can aim at the probe droid, and she's spending 2 strain in order to remove the probe droid's defensive die. Her attack is a yellow and a green. There is no defense die because she spent the strain to remove it. So all this damage goes straight on to the probe droid. It has 5 health. She inflicts 3 with a surge. Using her +1 damage, she inflicts 4 damage on the... Actually what she's going to do is she's going to keep the 3 damage and she'll use a surge to remove 1 of the strain that she just gave herself. And inflict 3 on the droid. At the end of the round, this is what it looks like. Garkin taking the majority of the hits. He's still focused. And Jin and Finn. So that's the heroes. At the end of the round, we'll reset these tokens and readjust for anything for the fresh round coming up. The heroes in campaign always go first at the beginning of every round. Over at the Imperial side, taking some damage on the probe, we have 2 Stormtroopers down out of the squad of 3. And we return everyone back to their pre-activated positions. Threat goes up by the threat value and the round. We're now heading into round 2. And 2 threat. So if at the beginning of the phase we start round 2, the heroes go first, but when the bad guys, or when the Empire should say, when they have enough threat, they can spend to resupply the squad that has currently lost a couple of guys, and that requires 2 points to do so. So if they by spending the 2 points there, reducing it back to 0, then they get to bring another soldier back on the field to replenish the squad, not to add a squad. If this one lone stormtrooper that's left dies, that's the squad gone, and to replenish the squad requires a full 6 points. But to add a trooper to the squad, as long as there's one remaining, there's 2. So these units that have squads of 3, that's pretty cool, because you've got a bit of time to hopefully replenish. But Gino Dan is going to fire on the probe droid. The probe droid gets to defend with 1 black die. And that's enough to cause it to be destroyed. She inflicts at least 1 damage, so she can move, slide 1 spot, and now she's adjacent to there, and she still has 1 more activation to go. And she's going to shoot at the terminal. I was thinking about the crate, but she's going to shoot at the terminal. The terminal automatically has 1 block applied. Which now she's done 3 plus a surge. There's 1 block already applied, and her surge is plus 1 damage, so she does 3 damage to the terminal. And the terminal's maximum, or the terminal's health is 4, so she's most way there. So now it's time for the activation of the Empire. So the Imperial officer is the nearest to someone. Activated, used his command to move the trooper forward, and then shoots at Fen. So that's the yellow and green versus the black. Fen has already taken damage, so out of the option between Fen and Jin, it goes for the one that's already been wounded. Blocks 2, 1 surge. Finn now has taken 2 damage. And now it's the activation of the rebels. Finn is the next one to activate and is attacking the stormtrooper with the surge spent to do an extra damage on the officer. The evade from the stormtrooper blocks the surge, but Finn still manages to inflict 2 damage, and 1 is added, or the blast shot affects the officer. Finn's second attack is going to be on the officer, and if you remember, the officer has a white defense die, plus they're spending the surge to add the blast attack from his havoc shot, so hoping that he will be able to eliminate 2 targets with the 1 attack, because the havoc shot will be enough to remove the stormtrooper, and hopefully he'll inflict enough damage to take out the officer. Hopefully he'll damage the officer. Now also, there's a global effect that's in play, because at the beginning we flipped one of those event cards and it was +1 to all damage by all the Imperial officers this round, or by all Imperial attacks this round. So Finn took an extra damage on that last one. I just forgot to add it. And we're off. So he's an evade, which is fine. No X. Takes 2 damage and a surge. Well, that's enough to remove the officer as a casualty. plus do the damage to the blast, which will then remove the stormtrooper as well. So both the stormtrooper and the officer come off. Fenn's activation is complete, and we have no more Empire on the board. So now the rebels do what they do. They've still got to take out things and go whatever, so it's go time. Diala's the next one to activate. She's straining to move 1, and now she's going to green and yellow the console to destroy that, hopefully. There's 1 block already applied automatically, so we'll just do that. And she does the damage. That's fine. It gets through, destroying that terminal. And she's going to flip the check the chest for something. So her activation, second activation, is to do that. So we flip the top card. And the power generator. Discard this card. So we got the crate token. And she gets to apply a +2 booms and a PS2 to an attack result. So that's pretty good. That's a consumable for an energy weapon. So we can give that to one of the energy blasters, which is going to be Jin. The crate token traditionally stays in the area here next to the characters, and you get credits for all the crates that you discover. So with the effect on this card is that it's actually going to discard that crate, meaning that you don't get the credits for it. But if she doesn't use the card, then she will. So, but for 2 booms and a pierce, 2 booms and 2 pierce, it's probably well worth it. And she's yeah, she's a good one. I like Jin. All right. So now the next activation is going to be Fenn. So what we're going to do is move close to the door, and he's going to rest. So the way that we rest, his endurance is 4, so he gets to rest 4 points. The first that has to come off are the strain, and then he's able to remove all 3 wounds. So he's good to go, and that's going to be his activation. The last activation for the round is going to be Garkin, who moves 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And is likewise going to rest. Then it's the end of the round. There are no more Imperials at this point. We'll see what happens. Usually with an event that happens, either the destruction of terminals or activation of a token or opening doors or whatever, new things happen. So basically they've still got the 3 terminals to destroy, and we're about to enter round 3. So that's yeah, there's a little bit of activity to be done. It's about activation rationality. You've got to be able to get your activations to do the right things at the right time, but you want to also not leave yourself hanging out in the middle of nowhere at some point as well, which will always happen. So, but it's fun. All right, end of the round. So we've flipped over the round. We're now onto round 3. We've added the 2 additional threat, so they've got 4 threat in the bank. And now we flip over our new card for this round. When an Imperial figure deals 1 or more booms to a target, that Imperial figure becomes focused. There you go. The first to activate is Garkin, who activates the door. First action, boom, door open. First time the door opens, they're here! The Imperial forces shout as they scramble their defenses. Keep them away from the transmitters! There's a crackle from the comlink. Imperial forces on approach. Your pilot contacts you from your transport now circling overhead. The place is going to be crawling with them soon, so get the job done quick. The dreaded E-Web engineer. And our guys over there. Okay, so Garkin's used one action, open the door. Now, time for the mad scramble. So he will move. Yes, he doesn't have reach, so he's going to have to... 1, 2, yep, he's going to have to move. And then it's the Imperial numbers. Putting himself in harm's way, that's what we're doing here. Alright, all good. Alright, so now it's time for the first activation of the Empire. Funnily enough, it's going to be the E-Web. Now I forgot to do it last round, but I'm definitely not going to forget to do it this one. And that's the show of force, which allows one shooting figure to be focused for that shot. So we're going to do that with the E-Web engineer. On top of the yellow, red and blue, we'll throw in a green as well, because we just want to do maximum damage. And then, as the global condition says, if it inflicts 1 damage, then yeah, becomes focused again. So this is a truckload of damage coming through, but what we got is red. Well, we got everything. It's a full rainbow. With his single black die to try and hold him off with his armor. Alright, well at least it's 3 blocking, that's good. Now let's see what we've got on top of that. That is probably the least amount of damage that could be done. Probably. So was it 2, 4, 5, goes to 2, plus 2 surges. We'll have a look at the surges. There'll be a boom somewhere. Yep, plus 1 boom. So that's for a total of the 3 block. So that's 3 damage passed through to Garkin. So Fen is going to 2 strain to get to there, and then fire into the E-Web engineer. E-Web engineer defends with 1 black. Fen's first shot blocks the evade, if there is one, and the E-Web engineer takes 4 damage. He's going to do it again. That's 3. And even by adding the 1 boom with his surge, that's not going to be enough. So what he's going to do is with the surge is remove 1 strain, because he used 2 to move, and yeah. Then he gets to recover 1 strain on his own because he's not surrounded by, he's got no friendly units adjacent to him. Stormtroopers activate. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the target chosen is Garkin because he's the most wounded. Two block, 2 surge, Garkin takes a wound. 5 squares, yep. The second one, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. and from this corner is still able to attack Garkin. Two block, so that's gonna be two booms, two more. Garkin has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage out of 14 health. He's taken 11. Ouch. So, yep, ouch. And now the last one, 1, 2, 3, 4 moves to here. And from this corner here is able to make the corners across there. So he gets to an attack on Garkin as well. 3 stormtroopers going hell for leather onto Garkin. 3 and 3 blocks. Doesn't get through. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So now it's the next activation for the rebels. So Gino Dan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And from her corner she gets to shoot this guy, which is what she does. 2 greens versus a black. 3 spaces. It's always her problem in terms of range. Yeah. 1 surge off, 1 thing, yep, so no. He's going to lose a surge, and even if the surge applies an accuracy, nope, still no damage. Does not get to even do a boom or slide or anything of the sort. So, not this time, Jin. But she's setting herself up for a nice spot next round. And it's the officer who's next. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just to sort of keep himself there. Nice and easy. Might as well point in the direction that they're going. And now we're up to Diala. Diala's activation. 1, 2, 3, 4. And she can attack the console. 1 green, 1 yellow. It automatically has the block applied with a surge for a boom. There you go. So 1 block is applied. So it's 2 damage with a surge, and she gets to add 1 more boom, so that takes 3 damage. Actually, it only takes 2 damage because there's an enemy adjacent. Oh, sorry, an Imperial unit adjacent, so that adds an extra block. So yeah, she's cut it down to half strength, or to half the health. And that's the end of the round. We're now moving to round 4. Okay. So at the end of the round, the door shuts behind them and is now officially locked, locking them in from there. And now at the beginning of the next round, we go through all of our token flippings, reactivate cards, ready what we need to ready, which includes the supply cards, all sorts of things, whatever we need to ready, we ready. And now that we've got 6 threat, we deploy another unit of stormtroopers. Oh no. Now they've got their work cut out for them. Now remember, the mission ends as soon as all of the terminals are done. And that is the mission, not the destruction of all of soldiers. But it does help if you kill as many of them as possible to be able to accomplish your mission. The global effect for this round is that all figures that, all enemy figures that have a melee attack gain Pierce 1, and then a surge is bleed, which is pretty nasty. So thankfully we don't have any of those, but every round you flip one of these. Sometimes it's an instant rather than a global. And if it's global, it stays until the next global comes across. If it's an instant, you just resolve those effects, and it can be things like all troopers regain 3 health, or you get to move, or whatever. There's an instant effect or a global effect. So that's pretty much. Sometimes there can be more than one global effect in effect, but at this stage we've just got a single global effect. And every time we get a new global effect, it just overrides the old one. First to activate is going to be Garkin, who's hitting with red, yellow and green because he's focused still, versus the E-Web, and we're hoping, or he's hoping, that he can lay on an extra point of smack for the cleave option. And he should have a good chance at taking out the E-Web. The first activation, maybe not. Oh, yep, there it is. 2 blocks. Yep, that's fine. That's enough. And with 1 surge, is able to inflict an extra point of damage on that, taking away the E-Web. So the E-Web is gone. Now, what Garkin is going to do for his second activation is rest, because he's close. So 4 health. Recover, which at least gives him some breathing space when those troopers come down, because they're going to be aiming for him. They are literally going to be gunning for him. Alright, so now it's time for the if you move over here, if he moves, spends 2 surge to go 1, 2. What you can't do is spend 2 surge and it's not like 2 movement points. You move 1 surge to do a point. Because you can move through friendlies as if it's an even, it's not like you can spend 2 points and go over. You have to spend 1 point and move in 1 point, then move in. So you can't jump your friendly models when you're spending your surge points, just as because you can't end your movement in the same square as another model. Just sort of putting it out there. Alright, if he spent 2 surge, go there, which protects him from some of the attacks. That might be worthwhile. Alright, we'll do that with, he'll spend his 2 surge, get him here, give him a little bit of cover, and that's because he needed to heal. So now he's got 2 surge and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, taken 6 damage out of 14. So we're good. Which protects him from some, but not all. Yeah. Alright. So the officer is next, who will activate, interrupt his move for activating this guy. 1, 2, 3. Putting him there. Actually 4, put him there adjacent to the terminal. And then does his own movement, which brings him to there, so that he's adjacent. 1, 2, actually 3. We'll put him here. Why not? Just point everywhere, buddy. You're surrounded. Alright, so that's the activations there. Now it's back to the rebels and their next activation. Diala activates so that she can do some sort of damage. An attack here, which now has 2 block because it's next to, and which got adjacent to an Imperial figure. She needs to inflict 1 point of damage. Which she doesn't do. Because she doesn't inflict any damage on that whatsoever. She's going to have to do it again. And this time, she does manage to get through with 2 damage. The surge adding 1 damage. Removing that terminal. At some cost. Now it's back to the Empire with Stormtrooper activations. So the Stormtroopers at the top here activate, and because there's no way that they can move and shoot or get into range, they're just doing 2 movements, 2 lots of movements. So we'll move them. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Alright, what the heck, 3. So that's that group activated. Now it's time for the heroes. So Finn is going to activate 1 strain to move 1 square. Bit of a car park. And he's going to Havoc Shot that one with his first attack. Seeing how he goes, Havoc Shot on the second one. So we'll get that done. Spending his strain to do so. First attack. So that's 1 damage to number 1 on the reds. That's that one there. Inflicting damage to number 3. So he managed to do that Havoc Shot thing okay. So might as well do the same thing again and aim at the same guy. The Havoc Shot isn't limited to once per activation. It's every time he fires, he can spend a strain. And wiping him out. So that's killing him. Number 1 is down. And the other guy takes another wound. So that also puts our boy Finn to 3 strain. And now it's the activation of the last Stormtroopers. There's a great app, and I'll put the link up, that you can use for most of the maps on calculating line of sight. And that was so that we could determine whether or not Jin had line of sight to this character here, which she doesn't. So when this one activates, she cannot do her special interrupt shoot maneuver. But like I said, the community's strong, and we have lots of different tools to help people play. And these calculators are one of the best ways of just working out quickly whether or not someone had line of sight, because that's a blocking model for Jin. And we're good. You can shoot through your own models without, your own friendly models don't block line of sight, but enemy models do block line of sight. So activation, this one here is shooting and is then at Garkin and then moving up this way. Shots at Garkin. Garkin blocks for 2 with a surge which gives +1 damage. Garkin takes 1 wound. 1, 2, 3, 4, moving up to there. Now the other one is taking shots at Finn. This one's going to be focused using these special rules that for focusing, because we've got that 1 per round focus. He blocks and evade, but the guy still does 1, 2, 3 and 1 surge for 4 damage in total onto Finn. Fen Cygnus. Final activation this round is Jin. He's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and she's taking some shots at the terminal at the top. It already has 1 block applied. She can surge for +1 boom, which she's going to need. So she does 1, 2, 3 and a surge. So that gives her 4 damage versus the boom. If I wanted to use her once ability to apply 2 booms and 2 pierce, that would remove it, but it might be worthwhile just sort of maybe waiting. So we'll just inflict the 3 damage onto the terminal. Coming in for round 5, and our next one is Global. All troopers gain 2 blocks. Ooh, ouch. They all gain 2 blocks. We have to try and remember that. But that's kind of hurty. That hurts. But we are very close to actually finishing. So that's alright. The targets aren't really troopers, but it's handy to know that. For spending the 2 points that was on the influence, we've reinforced one of our units, and they come back on the deployment zones, and that's the deployment zone for the troopers for this one, which is fine. Gino Dan is going to be the next, or the first, to be activated for the rebels. She's going to fire, slide, and hopefully fire onto that other one with a power pack and everything else that goes with it. Alright, let's go. So 1 block is already applied, 2 greens, and she causes it to go boom. That gives her a slide, because every time when she inflicts a damage on her target, she gets to move 1 space. Jin is one of the fastest characters to get around a board, and if you need someone to be able to zip around, especially in this sort of mission, she's your go-to. Alright, so now it's time to fire onto the other one, and she's going to expend the power pack, likely. So 2 shots. Yep, so that's 3 damage, and she gets to apply the power pack, which uses up the crate that they picked up, and that, so they don't get the bonus credits for the crate. They use that. Gives them enough pierce and boom to take that out. And on round 5, mission accomplished. And that's it, that's the end. So now we've just got the activation, the last round details, and we can have a bit of a debrief. So when all terminals are destroyed, yay! Their plans disrupted. The remaining Imperial forces fall into a hasty retreat. Nice work, your pilot grins back as you pile into the transport. Place story mission card, a new threat, into play. Heroes receive 100 credits per hero. Additional rewards, they also receive 100 credits, so it's 200 credits per hero. And the Imperial player receives 1 influence, which we're not using, but the players also receive 1 XP. Just as the players do, the Empire or the Imperial player gets 1 XP. So these are the options that they can choose from. Riot Grenades, which is an action on a trooper only. Exhaust this card to choose a space within 3 spaces. Each figure on or adjacent to that tests for their insight. Anyone who fails suffers 1 strain. Or can select for one threat, so to pay the cost every time they use it. Exhaust this card at the end of a trooper's activation. So one is during the activation, the other one is at the end of the activation. That figure and each adjacent Imperial figure recovers 2 health. That might be worthwhile. And this is a trooper, so we're talking troopers. So that's okay. 2 health almost brings everyone back to, so spend 1 threat and you get back 2 health on a trooper or whoever's adjacent. Like the other troopers that are the figure and each adjacent Imperial figure. So it's not even troopers, it's the trooper and the figure in the other Imperial figures. So that might be worthwhile. Actually, I think that'll be the... they're going to spend their XP, so they have that as an option. 2 XP is some other thing where exhaust this card while defending and reroll 1 black die. It's an attachment to a card. So these are the cards that are available for the Empire now, every round. 1 threat to exhaust, and then they get a free, this one to exhaust for the focus. Cool. So not to be outdone, our heroes here all gain an XP, and we'll have a look at their XP chart. But they've also got 800 credits in total, 200 each, to spend, which is pretty good. So we'll have a look at that as well. For the equipment, we draw 6 cards. And of those 6, that's what's available for purchase. Or they can save their money and save up for down the way. Balanced hilt. So it's a modification. Most weapons are able to be modified, and you'll see like these little symbols here when they can be modified. For melee weapons, it's the little orange ones, and that means that you're able to put an upgrade card, attach it to there. Sometimes there are 2 attached, and you can apply 2, but for the most part, usually it's 1. So Balanced Hilt means that you are applying 1 surge to every attack result for 300 credits. 400 is a hand cannon which is 2 red dice, and that looks like pretty heavy duty. Extended half, this is a good one for Garkin. If the weapon already has reach, you get pierce, otherwise you gain reach. So that's always good as well. A punch dagger. Remember, you can have 2 weapons, and you can have 1 armor and 3 other equipment. So survival gear is equipment. Armored gauntlets. So this is a melee attack with lots of options there. So for 300, 250, and we've got 800 credits to spend. So what we'll do is we'll have a look and see what we need to buy. That's what we've got in the shop to choose from. Over at the XP wise, we have options to choose one or save up the point. Wookiee, we can exhaust the card, recover 2 health, that would have been useful. 1 strain to exhaust this card during the activation, and you can either recover it or discard a condition, so that's useful. Or the Wookiee loyalty card, which exhausts this card and you get +1 block. So you're sort of putting yourself around to get in everyone's way. This is a great one, force throw. It's 2 strain to use though, but anyone a small or a medium figure, so basically just like one of the small figures, like just a normal person, within 3 spaces, test for your insight. If you pass, you push it 3 spaces and they suffer, if it's hostile, they suffer 1 damage, which is great. So you're just inflicting 1 damage with an insight check for 2 strain. And if it's an ally, you can move that ally 3 spaces. Just go whoosh, give them a bit of a push, and away they go. Force Adept, use while your friendly figure is performing an attack. That figure may reroll 1 die. So exhaust this card when you perform your own, and then you can add a blue die. So there you go. So yeah. Jin Adan, quick as a whip. After an attack is targeted and resolved, you may move the space. So that's just when it's resolved. After an attack targeting you is resolved, you may move 1 space. That's what I mean. She is quick. So you shoot at her, she moves. She shoots you, she moves. Then she has a nice 5 movement. So, and that's not exhaust, that's every time an attack is targeting her, she moves 1 space. So there are times when she can just go blip, blip, blip right across, which is pretty cool. Or Smuggler's Luck, exhaust this card while performing an attribute test. Exhaust this card when you draw a supply card, sort of what we just did, discard a card and draw another one. During the Rebel upgrade stage, draw 1 additional item card. So during this stage, draw an extra card, so you draw 7. Or when you're doing the supply chest or the checking the crates, you can swap over, draw a 2nd card. So that's useful too. Then we've got Fan. Exhaust this card at the start of your activation. You get 2 movement points. You can give them out, you're forcing with some additional movement. Forced marching, we love it. Exhaust this card. When an attack targeting you is declared, add 1 white die. So he gets 1 black, 1 white. Oh, that's good. So there's a lot of options in here. For that 1 XP, it really opens it up. And this is where you start to really get to adjust how you want your character to be. If you want your character to really go in one direction, you can do that. And as you saw in this event, in this mission, movement was more important. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just need to get out and be chunky with the damage, so you can be a little bit light on. So that's why it's very hard to sort of work out where we're going with all this. So you'll see here, Vibroaxe. Giving him reach is a great option. So that way he doesn't have to get base to base, he can be 1 square out. and then do some damage. But the plasteel staff with the balanced hilt, giving her an extra surge every time. So that's either giving her the option of doing a stunning attack. That's useful. And then on the we don't have any blaster upgrades on option, but we've got survival gear that we have to attach to somebody potentially, which is these ones over here. Reroll 1 test die when testing for physical strength. You ignore additional movement point costs when entering difficult terrain. So not that we really needed to, but difficult terrain adds an extra movement point to go through. So that can be something. So the extended hafts and the balanced hilts are definitely goes for 600 and leaving 300 left. It might be worthwhile just saving that and seeing what happens at the end of the next one. While that hand cannon is nice, it's very short range, and yeah, when you declare an attack with this weapon, you may apply -1 boom, because you're going to get truckloads of booms with 2 reds, and +2 accuracy. It already has a +1 accuracy, so that way you can at least use it adjacent. So anyway, yes. So, yep, balance hilt, extended haft. We'll put them on our melee guys. Garkin's vibro axe with extended half, balanced hilt, and the plasteel staff. Exhaust this card while attacking to apply +1. So she can only use it for one of her activations, but that's still. Inflicting a stun is good. I wasn't really feeling the Jins or Fens cards, so they're going to bank their XP. Could not say no to force throw, and the Wookiee Fortitude. I could not say no to spending a strain and recovering 2 health, because he's a target. He's a big target. So yeah. All right. So that was the aftermath. The next up is actually a side mission. So you get to put all sorts of cards together and draw out a new mission, and then you can get back onto the campaign. The official lines are introduction to the campaign, aftermath, side mission, story mission, which for us is going to be a new threat, side mission, story mission 2, which we won't know until we finish a new threat. And that's the thing, if you lose, you go to a different mission. If you win, then lose, so your missions will change. The side missions are also variable. You've got the 1 extra mission for all the characters, for their special cards, so they get special bonuses. And then you have a number of missions that are put in the side just to sort of put in a special hand. And then of course the Imperial Force can force missions as well, depending on what comes up. Now, I would, in a campaign scenario, recommend probably throwing in additional side missions. Here you've got story mission 2, then 2 side missions, then side mission, then a story, then it goes to finale. So you go from story to finale. Just because if you want Diala to have a lightsaber, and you want the others to get their special gifts, plus you've got the additional cards that are required for the side mission options, you only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 side missions. Potentially you're picking 5 cards out of about 8 to 10. Then you've got the forced ones as defined by the the Empire. I would probably add a couple more, just so that way you make sure you go through all of the heroes, because you want them to get their kit. The last thing, I mean, you need to have Diala with her lightsaber down the way. It's pretty much expecting that that's to have happened. So if you've got her, you want that. Your Jins, same thing. You want them to be tooled up to best of their ability down the way. So if you're lucky enough to get them, that's great. But really, you want to make sure that every hero has their personal mission and that they've got their opportunity to shine, I suppose, because they take center stage during their own personal missions. So anyway, so that's my take. My take is add a couple more side missions. Maybe put 2 here and 2 there. I don't know, just add. There's nothing wrong with adding more missions. You're giving away additional XP, which I suppose is the offset, as well as all of they get the extra credits. So there are things, but then the Imperial get the threats, the agenda options and so on as well to play. So it's neither here nor there in my mind. I just think that more games are good rather than less games, giving everybody a chance to shine and giving everybody a chance to go, and make use of some of the special cards as well. So if you get a Rebel Saboteurs, or if you get an extra allotment of Rebel Fleet Troopers, you can call them in as well as reinforcements, which is good. So that increases the threat level automatically, but bodies on the board, moving and shooting and doing the good stuff, fighting the good fight. All right, I think that's about it. I'm going to have one more zip around, see if there's anything I've forgotten to mention. But Imperial Assault, there's a lot to be done here in terms of to go over and how the game works. It's just magnificent. Sorry, it's one of my favorite games, and it deserves a much better treatment from its people. Now, if you want to know how to paint some of these, Sorastro is the only way to go. So Sorastro was on YouTube. I'll put his link in there as well. Yep, Jin, she's awesome. So there are other heroes to choose from. You don't have to just pick those ones. There are also, off the core block, you've got 2 or 3 extra, I think. Maybe it's 6 to pick from. But then once you've got the other kits, you get those people as well. And there's a few extra Jedi types. So that's good. But yeah, so she's got her Force Throw now. Yes, 2 strain, boom, just inflict damage. All right, like I said, I'm gonna have a quick zip around, see if I've done anything, but if not, then I will sign off. Give me a few moments. So there's definitely a lot that you can work with in this game, which is pretty fun. So anyway, all right. That's enough mucking around, I suppose. So I've given a brief, well, a pretty thorough going over with that first mission. I've used the Redjack system for the first time, and it made a fair bit of sense. It sort of was easy to follow. The hardest part's just really printing everything out. I'll put in the link to some of the things that I was talking about. A couple of the calculator and so on, because that might be useful just in general for people who play this game. Now I want to thank everybody again, liking, subscribing, all that. You guys are great. So anyway, so the Patreon, thank you. That's great, guys. I appreciate all the support. It helps getting some of these models out, getting these videos out, sorry, and give me some time to try and find something new and interesting. So the probably a bit of a pause for a couple of weeks just while some other stuff's going on, but I'll see if I can knock something out. I like to put value out rather than just quantity, and I'm certainly not going to scream down the screen at you, just sort of, you know, like some bazaar. What is this, a Turkish bazaar? So thank you very much. Enjoy, stay safe, play well, and let me know if you're still playing Imperial Assault and how you're going about it. There's still, the community is strong, and in terms of the skirmish game, which we didn't cover today, they do a lot of, the map rotations are still in play, and pretty much when you go to a tournament, there's set maps, so everyone knows this year these are the maps that are being used, and that way you've got something to practice with and play on. Anyway, so I want to thank everybody. I just can't help thanking everybody. It's just great. I love the support that everyone's giving and the communication. Keep it up. All right, thanks guys. See you later.